Yo, what is good, dev guys? Welcome back. In this video, I want to actually move forward with our grenade ability here. You see, if we press Q, we go into this montage here and we get stuck in it, and then we throw the grenade, but we actually don't even spawn the grenade. And you see, it is a one-off action. When you press Q, you kind of get stuck here and you're not able to control when you actually release the grenade. So I want to fix that, and I actually want to spawn the grenade today. So let's jump right into this puppy, man. So the first thing we need to do is set up the way that we need to equip the grenade. So right now when we press Q, we are actually firing the grenade ability. But what I want to do is when we press Q, I want to actually equip the grenade as if it was a weapon in our inventory. So that takes me to where we need to actually handle that when we're thinking about things like inventory. So I'm gonna go to plugin, shoot a core, go to game. I'm gonna go to this mannequin here. Then I want to go to this add initial inventory function here, because this is where we cycle through our inventory items here. This is an array, and we give us an inventory and we give ourselves the item definition, and then we add that item definition to a slot. You can see right here it's iterating through the array, taking the index of that position in the array and setting that as the active slot for this particular item that comes through. What I want to do here is something really dirty. This is not something that you would want to do for a project that has a lot of weapons and something that you want to be modular, but for this project it's going to work, and we will eventually make it more modular down the line when we add the sniper and the pistol. But for right now, what I want to do is grab this and I want to cast this to our grenade. So I'm gonna go to ID grenade class. And if this cast succeeds, we basically want to do both of these things here, copy and paste them. And then I'm gonna move these back down here because we want to run this on the fail. And then here, what we want to do through the loop body is go to this cast. And if this cast is successful, we want to add the item definition of that grenade class. And then we want to add this item, which is if we look here, is an inventory item instance. We want to add this item to our quick bar slot, but you see here we can select an index here, but technically what I would like is for our things like equipment to have a particular slot that they get equipped to, and where that's handled is actually in this quick bar slot component. So if we double click on this function, it'll take us to that component, and you see here add item to slot. It iterates over the slots and checks to see if there's anything in that slot, and if so, it sets that slot index equal to the item that's getting passed in here, and then it replicates the slots for us. So if we go to the actual header file for this, we'll see I'm already kind of here because I went through this already. This U property here for the number of slots is hard set to 3. What I want to do is hard set this to 4 because I want to have 3 weapon slots and then 1 equipment slot. So what we'll do is when we add an item to slot, we'll set this to the 4th index, which is 3 in the array. So you got 0, 1, 2, 3, and that's the 4th index. So we'll set that to slot 3. And what we'll do here is instead of giving this the array index here, since technically we're only going to have 1 item, and we could show how this will look with 2 items. So I'm going to add the rifle in as our second item so that you can see why I'm doing this is I want to switch back and forth in between these 2 items. So if the item is not a grenade, we just want to put it in the slot index 0, which is the first slot. And then we'll compile that. So what this is doing, this is setting us up to where our grenade will automatically be equipped to a particular slot, but we don't have a way to quick change to that slot. And that's because when we're pressing Q, once again, we're firing the actual ability. We're not doing what I wanted to do. I want when we press Q for us to equip the item inside of the grenade slot. So let's navigate to where that's found. If we go to plugins, shoot a core, let's go to input, find an input, let's go to actions, and we have this grenade action here. If we right click and look at its reference viewer, we can see that it is here in the gamepad and also in this keyboard and mouse. It's using this input shooter game add-on. So I'm gonna right click on this and edit this. And you see here in the grenade, we say that this IA grenade is actually firing off this weapon grenade input tag, but we don't actually want this to fire off the grenade input tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually delete this, and I'm going to save this. And what I want to do is when I press Q, I want to activate a slot. So if you go back to the hero shooter mannequin, you go to this event graph, they handle their slots here inside the character here. So you see if we press quick slot 1, we'll go ahead and set the new slot index to 0, and then we'll fire off this tag. So I want to do the same thing with the grenade slot. So let's look for grenade. And let's do this here. And once we fire the grenade, when it's triggered, I want to go ahead and set the quick bar slot to the slot that we set, which is 3. And this will go ahead and fire this function off, and it'll activate this tag and pass through this slot. So whenever this tag is sent, it's listening for the slot index, and it automatically changes the weapon to whatever is in that slot index. Now, this won't work when we press play because we actually need to recompile from source. So I'm going to go to the source code here and recompile. Okay, so that compiled successfully. Now let's go ahead and try to play test this and see if we actually equip the grenade here. So I'm going to press play, and technically we should have the rifle in our hands. And if we press Q, we swap to the grenade. And if we press 1, we swap back to the rifle. But you'll see here, there's like some bugs that arise here. And then we're actually not able to use the grenade like we want to. We can't throw it. We just have it equipped. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this. Now, the next thing we need to do is treat this grenade as a weapon. So each weapon, if you go to plugins, shooter core content, go into the weapons here, each weapon has a specific ability set that gets added to the player's ability system component, and it also gets removed when the weapon is unequipped. We want the grenade to have that same functionality. So I'm going to let's go to weapons and grenade, and in here we don't have that ability set. So let me open up another folder so I can just drag the one from rifle in there. So drag this inside of the grenade folder and copy. Now I'm gonna double click in here, and first let me rename this puppy to grenade. So we got ability set underscore grenade, and we don't need any of these granted abilities here. The only ability that we want to grant is the grenade ability, the first person one, and we want to give it the input tag of input tag ability grenade or input tag weapon grenade. We'll save that. And then one thing we'll see is that the actual ability for the grenade is used in 2 places. So that might cause some issues. So first, let's go to input abilities and navigate to this grenade FP, right click and look at its reference viewer. We can see it's referenced in the shooter hero ability set and the ability set grenade. We only need this one time. So I'm going to open up the shooter hero ability set. I'm actually going to delete. Let me look for it. Where is it? Grenade, 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 grenade. Does anybody see it? Where's the grenade? Here it is. So I'm going to delete this out of there. So we only have the grenade once. And now let's see if we can actually fire this grenade off and get it to at least trigger here. So if I press the left mouse button, I get nothing. And the reason for that is because we didn't actually set this ability set anywhere. And the place that we'll do that is in the actual weapon item definition or the equipment definition here. And you see here is referencing the shooter rifle ability set. We actually wanted to reference the grenade ability set here. And I'm going to compile that, and let's play test and see if we actually trigger the montage here. See, we don't. And I believe the reason behind that is because our left mouse click is not sending the input tag that this grenade is listening for. So our grenade, if we look at the ability set, is listening for this input tag weapon grenade. So we need to, inside of our input, in our actions, inside this shooter game add-ons, we need to go ahead and add an advanced ability action, and let's go ahead and set this up to be weapon fire, because we want this grenade to fire a certain way. We want to click down the mouse and start the animation, and then when we release the mouse, it actually fires or throws a grenade. So we want this to send through the grenade tag. So let's go ahead and do that. So what'll happen here is when we press play and we activate the grenade, when we click here, we actually are still doing that one-off animation here. And that's because we haven't really set up the montage to kind of work with this new setup. So we need to navigate to where we have that montage. So that is in assets, animations, abilities, grenade, and then we want to go to this grenade ability montage. You see here the way that these things are set up, it goes from start to loop to action. You can see that over here in this montage sections. You see it goes start, loop, action. So there's nothing causing our loop to loop, and that's because right here we need to actually set this to go to loop. If you set it to go to itself as the next thing, it'll actually loop that section. So now if we go in here and play, we press Q, then we press our left mouse button to trigger the actual start of this. You can see here now we haven't actually thrown the grenade, and that's because we're sitting in a loop here. So if I stop this and actually go into the grenade first person ability, which is in input, it's in shooter core input actions or abilities, and then GA grenade underscore FP. So you see here in this ability, and this looks a little weird, so I'm gonna just open up the My Blueprint tab, come to the event graph. When we activate the ability, we kind of don't do anything with the inputs. But what I want to do is when we activate the ability, we want to say wait input released. And this will wait on the input that's bound to this ability to be released. And once this is released, we want to call the function that we set up inside of one of the earlier videos is called a jump. So montage jump to section for mesh. And we want to grab our first person mesh. So we'll say get Lyra character from actor info, and then we'll get our mesh, and I think it's get first person mesh here. Grab our first person mesh, and then we'll pass that in as the mesh. And you see here it's asking for a section name, and usually I call it something like action so that it's very easy to remember. And so I'll just pass in action here. And now if we go in here and press play, we press Q. Here, if we release this key, once we release it, we actually fire the throw part of the actual montage here. So we do that again. I'm holding down my key, and then we throw. But you see here, we're not actually spawning the grenade. And this brings me all the way back to the code that we wrote for the ability to update our bones to tick on the server. Because right now, this event is being received by the client. If we double check here and we do a print string here, say print string, and we'll say throwing grenade, you'll see here when we press play and that event is triggered or it's received, it's only received on the client. You see that? It says client 1 throwing grenade, but it doesn't say that for the server. And we'll change this to be red so that it's visible to us, and then set the duration to be 5 seconds. So in order for this to be triggered on the dedicated server's version of this mesh, we need to tick and refresh the bones. So we need to call that function tick and refresh bones. And we want to do this at the beginning here. We want to do this as soon as this ability is fired to keep the transforms of the bones updated as soon as this ability is fired. And the mesh that we want to use is this same first person mesh here. So I'll just duplicate those, and we want to set this to always tick pose and refresh bones. So now what this will do is it will go ahead and grab the location of our, well, it won't grab the location of our bone, but it will fire this event on the server. But you see here, we didn't actually throw the grenade. And let me look again, and I'm seeing here something's wrong because now I'm not able to fire the ability again. And that's because I didn't actually hook the code back up here. But did you see the print log? It said that the server and the client was throwing the grenade. So now let's actually try to throw this puppy. And you see nothing spawns for us here. And I'm looking and I don't see the grenade coming out here. But if I look over here in my outliner to see if anything spawned, let me press Shift F1. If you look over here, we got 66 actors. If I throw the grenade, yeah, it doesn't spawn. So something is going wrong inside of here. So we're ticking and refreshing the bones. We're throwing this grenade. We're checking if we have authority. And here we're not actually getting to this point here. So let's just make sure everything is set up and we got our ducks in a row here. So we're waiting on this gameplay event grenade thrown. And let me double check that our server is also throwing this grenade. Yeah, we're getting the server and the client throwing the grenade. So something is bugging out here. I'm gonna pass that back through and do another test. Maybe it was a glitch. So let me see here. Let's throw that. And now it just says that the client is throwing the grenade, which is awkward, right? Because when we didn't have the actual code for throwing the grenade in there, the server was getting the event, and now it's only getting it for the client, which is weird. And the reason behind that is because this ability is canceling on the client before the server can reach this code. If we go ahead to the class defaults and we turn off the server respects remote ability cancellation, we turn this off and we press play here, we'll actually be able to toss this grenade out here. And you see where it comes from. It comes from the right location. If we throw that again, see, it comes kind of from my face. And it's because we are determining the throw. You see that right there? That is a glitch right there. So if we throw here, but we come over here, you see that line trace. I have that turned on for debugging. You probably won't have that turned on yet. But we throw, you see it comes from there, which is a big issue. And I've recorded this video already. It was about an hour and a half long while I was trying to figure out this bug. But it's simple as I didn't set up something correctly. And there's also another thing that is wrong here. Inside of the code, we're getting the spawn location and rotation before we are actually firing the actual grenade. So we're getting this location data way before we need it. So we need it once we throw the grenade. So we can take this to this function here. And right before we do this has authority check, we'll grab the data that we need so that we get the last known location of the hand mesh and the rotation value of our line trace before we actually spawn the actual grenade actor. So I'm gonna compile that. And the other issue, man, it took me so long to find this, bro. It took me about 4 hours. And what's gonna suck is 100 people are gonna watch this video. And I spent so much time today on fixing this. But if we go to the character class, and you'll see here that the issue is that I didn't attach the camera to the root object here. We just need to do camera component, and we need to call setup attachment. And we need to attach this to the root component because it's getting detached because it's not attached to anything. And oh my goodness. And also I want to go ahead and set the relative location to be 0 on the X so that it's just zeroed out on the X for us. And then I'm going to recompile this from source. Oh man. So now with that compiled successfully, I want to open up that ability again. I'm going to just control P, do GA underscore grenade. And let's open up this ability. And now with our code corrected in our code order of operations correct as well, we should be spawning this from our right hand. And you see here that our server and our client is updating. They might not be one-to-one, but they are updating. But once I press Q here, we are pretty much as close as we can in sync with the server here. So if I throw this, you see it kind of spawns a little bit. It spawns a little bit off, but it's actually still spawning from my. It's actually still spawning from my face. So what I want to go and do here is actually change this code here. I'm just going to pass this straight through. I'm not going to think about it, and I'm going to change this socket. I'm actually change it to hand_R, and let's see if that fixes my issue here. So here, let's grab this and toss this. And you see now it comes directly from my hand, and it looks pretty good. So, you know, it looks like I'm actually tossing that grenade. Let me toss it at this guy, blow him up, you know what I mean? Let's wait for the cooldown. Let's toss it at this guy, after it over his head. Let me toss it at him. There we go. So for now, that looks pretty good. So in the next video, what I want to do is just make it look a little bit cleaner, hide in the mesh, call in some events whenever we are ready to stop throwing the grenade, and just make things look a little bit tighter. So if you guys are ready for that, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.